And you're good to start.
Okay, thank you so much, Paige. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Love. I'm the editor of the Gary Anthology. I was also an IAC on-ramp recipient, and I'm very honored today to be the peer for Becky Hochhalter, who's going to be talking about freelancing. I'll be monitoring the chat box, so if while she's talking, if you have any questions, please know that I'll be making a note of that, and we'll be discussing that towards the end. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to you now, Becky.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. As he said, I'm Becky Hochhalter, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and we'll get to those at the end. I'm planning on having time at the end to go over some questions. So it's so great to see all of you. I think that that probably a lot of people who are doing this are like me. I'm not a professional speaker. I'm an artist. I'm a professional artist. So bear with me if I seem a little awkward or it doesn't go as smoothly as possible. I've got some actual cue cards here. I don't know that I'm going to use them unless I just can't remember. But I'm a professional artist. I'm in Region 6. I'm based out of Terre Haute, Indiana. And I'm actually coming to you live from Arts Indiana, which is the regional partner for the Indiana Arts Commission in Region 6. And so we are the 4140 Arts and Culture District now, just newly named. I think it was 2 years ago. So that's pretty exciting to be in an arts and culture district. So professional artist, freelance artist is a very complicated and difficult thing to keep doing, is what Sam and I were just talking about. You have to really want it. And so I've gone after a lot of different mediums, just a little bit about what I do. I do murals. I do very large scale murals, 2-story buildings, do book illustrations. I do commission paintings. I'm doing a little bit of sculpture. I do graphics still. Graphics was my first career. So I do a lot of different mediums. And I've been freelance for about 9 years. Before that, I had 24 years in computer graphics, with 17 of those years at a Fortune 500 company, polyethylene packaging company here in Terre Haute. So got a heavy graphics background, but mostly a heavy background in customer service and pleasing the customer. So that's always my main focus, to treat it like a business. And that's how I keep going. So now that I've talked about that a little bit, I do want you to, if you hear something you like or whatever, give me a little reaction or say something in the chat. And like I said, we'll get to questions at the end. So we're going to talk about exposure for artists and why it's important. Let me see if I can change my view real quick here. Sorry. So for me, exposure has been everything. And there are a lot of good ways to get exposure and positive ways to get exposure. I'm going to talk a little bit about why we need exposure and generically talk about it and what we can do to get it. And then I'm going to show you some more specifics about what things I have done to get exposure. So what can we do as artists to gain exposure? I got some funny little illustrations here for you. I thought, I'm an artist, I might as well make it a little bit interesting anyway, hopefully. So things that we can do to gain exposure. So we can use exposure in a lot of different ways. And some of those ways are launching a new freelance career or enhancing an existing one. So, of course, at some point in your career, you're launching your career. And when you're doing that, you're trying to find ways to get people to know that you're out there and what you do. What is your discipline? What kind of services or skills do you have? And you need to get that word out there. So you want people to know, I'm ready to create. So I'm out here. This is what I do. I'm ready to take your commissions. And I'm excited to do it. And so a friend of mine who's a professional sculptor, he has been nationally recognized. He's actually right here in Terre Haute with me. He told me one time when I first started my career, sometimes you just really have to hit people over the head with the fact that you're an artist and what you do. Now, does he literally mean, you know, I'm going to go take my sculpture and bash people over the head with it? No, but you really have to get the word out there, because you're the only one that's going to toot your own horn and get that information out there to people. So you really have to make people aware. And the other thing is, you always want to continue that. As your career goes along, you've got to continue to get this exposure, because you don't want people to forget about you. I recently had someone ask me about another artist in the area that had been very active. What's he doing? Is he even working in art anymore? And I don't ever want anyone to say that about me. I want them to always know that I'm active. Here's what I'm doing. I use social media a lot. I use my Facebook page a lot, my Instagram, to update people continually on what projects I have going on, and they can see what I'm doing. So always continue to look for that exposure throughout your career. So another thing we can use exposure for is to increase awareness of something that we do that's new to us, a new service or skill. You know, maybe you took a class in sculpture, or, you know, maybe you took a metalwork class, or maybe you got some new equipment, you got to Wacom, and now you know how to do digital illustration. So you want people to know that, and you've got to find ways to get exposure for that new skill and get that information out there. Another thing that we want to do sometimes is add an example of a new skill to the portfolio. And there are ways that that can be done while gaining exposure. So maybe you're going to paint a mural. Say you're painting murals now. You want to paint a mural, and you're going to have a community engagement aspect of that, where you're going to have volunteers help you to create that mural. So you get that exposure to the community. You're building community connections, which is very important. You're showing people that you're, you know, invested in your community. And that's where we're headed with that one. We're building community connections this whole time. We're seeing, you know, who is our audience, who maybe is a potential customer base, and that we're invested in our community. So we're not just all about the exposure, but we want to make sure that we're also improving our community, and we're making this, wherever this is for you, a better place with what you're doing with these projects, with these community engagement projects. So that's something that I've really tried to focus on, is including the community and doing things that improve my community. So what's the right way to get exposure? Obviously, you know, we can come up with some crazy ways to get exposure, but, you know, what are some good ways that we can do this? And I want to say, I have to scream this, you don't have to work for free. You don't have to work for free. There's so many people out there who will, especially in the beginning of your career, trying to convince you that this good exposure, you can get so much exposure from this, and you just need to do it for free. But you don't have to work for free. And those people don't value what an artist can bring to the community. So remember that you don't have to work for free in order to get this positive exposure. So there are things we can do to get the exposure that we want. We can engage the community. We can find ways to make it happen. We can participate, activate public support, and follow through. Very important. So here are some ways that I have come up with creative ideas to get myself some exposure. Maybe they're portfolio building, maybe they're just awareness building, but we're going to go through some of these little projects that I've been involved with, or things that I've done. This particular one was called Raiders of the Lost Art. This was an idea that I had on my own just to do a sculpture hunt, free to the public. I wanted to get the public involved, get them excited about art and my art, and also hopefully gain some awareness that I can sculpt. I wanted to also make people aware of my business. I wanted to really build some community connections with this. So very small investment, bought some cornstarch, made cornstarch clay at home, bought it in bulk, very cheap, made my little sculptures, did a 12-week sculpture hunt. These are 6 of them that you can see here. Of course, it led to some really good exposure. I had an article in the local magazine, newspaper, and the coolest part about this, though, that was a great reward, but the coolest part about this, though, was how excited people were about this community event, this 12-week sculpture hunt. It kind of gained a cult following. People were literally so competitive and running to beat each other to the sculptures. They had to solve clues. I'll show you some of that too. You can see lots of families were involved. This was such a great community connection building way to gain some exposure. So I made these clues. You can see on the left there, one of my clue cards. All of these sculptures were about some kind of history in the Vigo County area, which is where I'm from. And so kids, not only in families, were learning about, not only getting excited about art, but learning about the history in this area, which they don't always teach in school. So they had to figure out these clues all about the local history and solve the clues to find the sculptures. And like I said, this had such a big following. It was so cool to watch people get so excited about this, and the kids loved it. I've had people ask me to do it again since I did this, and I probably will do a limited version of this. I mean, people signed up for text alerts to know when the clues were released. It was just really awesome how well it was received. So just something that, you know, this is a creative way that I came up with to get myself some exposure, but I'm involving the community, a community engagement there. So when we talk about making it happen, that's kind of been my mantra. I don't wait for it to fall in my lap. I don't wait for someone to come to me and say, can you do this? I come up with the idea and then I make it happen. I find a way to make it happen. So this particular case, I had never done a mural before, but I knew that I could do a mural and I wanted it in my portfolio. So the idea that I had was to do a mural for the city parks, which would give me the mural in my portfolio, the example that I needed to apply for other calls for artists, but also give the city this beautiful mural, you know, this beautification project basically in one of the city parks. And I did this for a lower cost than what I would normally charge. The reason being, I had never done a mural. They just had to trust me that I could do this mural. And I knew that, and I wanted that in my portfolio, and I wanted the Parks Department to be able to have it. And so there's some give and take, you know. In this case, I did it for less, but I still was able to always cover, you know, my expenses. Your always first goal in these types of projects is always to make sure you're covering your materials and your expenses. But I still made some money off of it. It was a great project. The community enjoys it every day. And so now I have that in my portfolio. Since then, I'm not even sure how many murals I've done, but I have done countless murals. So getting that in my portfolio and using that as a way to also get some exposure was, it was a huge benefit to me in my future career. Here's a little bit more about that. We had a nice unveiling, never done that before. A little bit of exposure in the newspaper, TV, all of that was a great benefit from me doing this project. The other thing that you can do is, you know, this was something that John Robeson here at Arts of Leanna, my community partner, had talked to me about. The fact that being participatory is so important. Even if, you know, maybe it's not a project that you would normally apply for, or you think, you know, the commission's not as big as I want it to be, or whatever. These are my community partners. So I'm trying to participate in what's happening in my community, especially. Anything that's improving the community. But I am still, you know, I'm still being paid to do these things, but there's, like I said, sometimes there's a give and take, not always. In this case, this is a mural, mini grant mural that the City of Terre Haute and Arts of Leanna have put out. And they're kind of helping artists who are struggling right now through the whole coronavirus pandemic, and also beautifying the city. And so I thought that was an awesome project, and I went ahead and applied for that. So I'll be doing the Stiffy Green mural. If you're not from Terre Haute, you probably don't know anything about the Stiffy Green legend in Terre Haute. It's kind of a cool story. You might look it up sometime. But this mural will be on the side of local business here in Terre Haute soon, hopefully. This is another example of being participatory in our area. Art Spaces, who does a lot of sculpture. They're building a sculpture collection in Terre Haute along the 4140 Arts and Culture District corridor. In this case, they wanted to beautify the fence, the construction fence around a new convention center that's being built here downtown. It will take some time, so they wanted it to look nice while they were doing that, and I thought that was also an awesome project. So I went ahead and applied. These are digital murals. They will be printed on perforated banner material and then attached to the fence. And so this particular one was, the theme was the Heritage Trail System that runs through Terre Haute and Vigo County. And so again, this is just kind of me being participatory, knowing who my community partners are, keeping in connection with them, you know, opening up to opportunities because I'm keeping connected with them. Another project in town, the Terre Haute, or the Vigo County History Museum was moving to a new location, wanted to raise some funds for their new location. They also wanted to raise awareness that Terre Haute is the birthplace of the Coke bottle. So if you don't know that, that's kind of a cool fact. So we did these painted Coke bottle sculptures around town. I ended up doing more than a 6-pack. I ended up doing 7 of them. But this is great exposure for me. And I was paid to do every one of these bottles, but these are advertisements for my work all over town. And so, you know, your next commission might come from someone seeing something like this that you've done that maybe wasn't your biggest commission ever, but now this is an advertisement for you. This is great exposure for you. There's some more of those. I even got to do one with my daughter. The Pike Bottle, that was one that I did with my daughter. Her sorority was paired with the Pike fraternity. So that was kind of fun. And so another way that you can be participatory is to do speaking engagements like this one. You make a lot of great connections and you get a lot of good exposure. You're building your customer base. I spoke to the Newcomers Club here in Terre Haute. That was almost 90 people in that presentation. And I mean, what a great way to get exposure to potential clients. You know, they may remember you in the future. They may say, hey, you know, she was a great mural artist or a portrait artist, and someone they know needs a project done that is right in your wheelhouse. So these are great ways not only to help your community, but to gain exposure. The one on the right, particularly, that was Jill Dittmeyer from WFYI in Indianapolis. She interviewed me for billboard that I was restoring here in town, which is the oldest billboard in the state of Indiana. And so she came over and did an interview with me. So that was awesome. That went, you know, all around Indianapolis on the Curious Mix, and really cool opportunity. Speaking to local organizations, like I said, the one on the left, during the pandemic, a virtual, still, a virtual presentation to the local art guild. I was painting murals for Noblesville, Indiana, in my garage at the time, actually, and did a presentation to the local art guild about that. Some of the classes I've taught, you know, done a lot of kids classes. I've taught classes at the Swope Art Museum, the Summer Youth Arts Program. I've participated in the ArtReach program at the Swope, which is free to the public. I've upper right there, I'm speaking at the Swope, Artists on Art, and then I do my own art events also. So those are great ways to make those community connections and get that exposure within the community to say, you know, here's what I can do, and maybe you're, you know, maybe you're making some new customers there. Again, speaking at the Swope. And then an art and science class that I did at the Terre Haute Children's Museum. Lots of fun with that one. And ArtReach there on the left, the book, The Hut, you can see in that top picture, I illustrated that book. I read the story to the kids at ArtReach and talked about the illustrations, and then we did a little craft. That was all a volunteer thing. But so much fun to especially see kids excited about the art. So the next thing I had talked about was activating public support. And a great way to do that is through crowdfunding and social media. And that, if it's a manageable size project that people think like, we can really make this happen, they get really excited about it. This particular one was a Facebook fundraiser. The funds were raised in 24 hours for this project. People were so excited to be part of beautifying downtown Terre Haute. The best part of that story was an ISU student. We have Indiana State University here, campus right next door. And an ISU student gave $5 because she was so excited about this and wanted to be part of it. That's all she could afford to give, but she gave $5. I mean, that is just awesome to me that someone is so excited about it. But the best part about this too was that it came to fruition very quickly. They got to see the results so quickly. They did it. They had a sense of collaboration. You know, they made this happen. And so that ownership and that collaboration that they had was just amazing. And lots of exposure from this. You know, it was local TV, newspaper, the social media. That was all great. But to me, you know, even though the exposure is great, it's always so exciting to see people excited about art. One other way to activate public support is to get sponsorship for public events. And that's something I did with this Chalk the Block. This ran for, I think, about 6 years during the time when Terre Haute had a Terre Haute downtown block party. And I wanted this to be a free event, free to the public. So we got some corporate sponsors, some business sponsors to buy the t-shirts, to buy the chalk, to purchase the trophies for the participants in their different categories. And this was a huge success. People were so happy to participate in this, bringing their kids out to participate. Lots of photos of people enjoying this. And I'd love to see this happen again. But again, then I was the face of this, kind of the face of this event. And so it was great exposure for me within the community and people seeing you, again, you're invested in your community, you're doing things to help the community. That's the community engagement element that I keep talking about, and I've probably said it too many times, but I think it's so important to get the community involved and excited about art, especially your art. So here's some more pictures of that event. And then last, a follow through. I mean, this is, it seems like you shouldn't have to say it, but it's so important. And I know, I mean, as an artist, and I know a lot of artists are kind of bad about not following through. And I hate to say that, but it's true. You've got to follow through. Don't be that person that says, you know, I've got this great idea, and then you are never heard from again. So make sure when you have these great ideas that you follow through and you do it to, you know, 110%. Don't just do it halfway. So these are a couple of things that, examples of that. These were classes. This is a class that I taught at the Swope Art Museum in the Summer Youth Arts program. I wanted to have a community engagement aspect of it. I wanted my class to create something for the community. So this was a mural creation class. The kids actually designed, traced, painted this mural, and they did it for the public library. So this mural was then displayed in the library. They were excited because their artwork was in the library. The library loved having this new piece of art. So, you know, we followed through with our plan and brought this to fruition. The library has a beautiful piece of art, and we did, you know, what we said we were going to do. Make a plan and stick with it. And this was one more that I had done for the Swope Art Summer Youth Arts program. This class created, you can see my sketch on the right of what my plan was to begin with, was to create this piece of an interactive display for the Terre Haute Children's Museum. So my class actually helped paint that. They created all of the pieces that go on this. This was based on a book called The Community. So it was all about who lives in your community, what do the things in your community or community look like. So the kids created all of the leaves that could be, they were magnetic and laminated, that could be put on the tree that children could choose, you know, what does their community look like? And so this was built by a local businessman. He volunteered to build the framework and create this piece that could go to the Children's Museum. And it's very sturdy, you can see it. It was just an awesome project. The kids got to go see it unveiled at the Children's Museum. And again, we followed through with our plan. You know, we made this come to fruition. So this is, again, lots of good exposure within the community. And I think that it's so valuable in so many ways, not just for myself as my business, but to improve the community. So just closing real quick. So we're gonna use exposure to launch a freelance career or enhance an existing one, increase awareness of a new service or skill, add an example of a new skill to your portfolio, and build community connections. And then we can get exposure by engaging the community, making it happen, finding ways to make it happen, participate, activate public support, and follow through. And then, just for the artists in the back that maybe didn't hear me the first time, you don't have to work for free. You don't have to work for free. You can find ways to do this where you're getting paid. And there's so many creative ways that you're an artist and you're a creative thinker. So think creatively. That's what I have to say. So I have a little bit of time, I think, for some questions. Anybody has any questions? I don't know if Sam, if you had seen questions in the chat.
Yeah, there are a few comments, and I do believe that everyone heard you when you said do not work for free, because that provoked some really great responses that I will mention. Josie said, big no-no, mistake made many times. And she suggested things like posting your art online, finding commissions, and doing as many art challenges as you can as a way to do anything but, you know, give your skills away.
Right.
Doris mentioned how she does trades with other artists, and I was really glad to hear that, things like skill sharing and bartering.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
And Molly mentioned tabling at the local First Friday art walks. So she's got a friend in her community and works with her.
Right.
So
yeah,
if you want, comment. And then there were a couple other questions we can bring in.
Yeah, I think anytime you're involving yourself in what's going on in your community, you know, you're getting good exposure and you're making those connections. You never know who your next client could be or where your next commission could come from. And so that's why it's so important to not just sit in your studio and, you know, kind of block yourself off from the world and hope that somebody maybe calls you today or emails you and says they need a project done. You've got to put yourself out there. And I know that's hard for a lot of artists. I know it's been hard for me at times, but the more you do it, the easier it gets to do that. And you meet so many cool people. And like I said, you're making those connections that could lead to the next big commission. So you've got to do that. You've got to put yourself out there.
Great. Well, Paige has had a question that parlays right into that. It's a very direct question. Is how do you turn these community engagement projects into sales?
Into sales. I try to, on a lot of these, like I said, you don't have to work for free. I really try to find a way to be getting paid to do a community engagement project, whether I'm teaching a class and doing a community engagement project at the same time with that class, which is what I showed you the last two things there, or even events where maybe you're getting a sponsor for that event. You know, I'm trying to find ways to make sure that I'm getting paid for it rather than relying on it somehow making me money down the road. But then hopefully it will lead to money down the road, projects down the road, commissions. But sometimes you're not. You know, sometimes you're just doing a speaking event. You know, I'm going to the SWOPE and I'm doing a speaking event. So the best thing for me then is to connect with as many of those people there as I can on a personal level. You know, don't just let them walk away. You're giving out your business cards. You're trying to make sure you're open and aware of the opportunities that are out there and you're thinking creatively all the time. So, you know, if say you're like I do a lot of different mediums, but I'm always trying to make sure I'm paying attention to what people are interested in and, you know, what they're showing interest in, maybe during my speech or maybe when I'm showing my art, what are they showing interest in? So I really try hard to work on commission. I know not all artists work that way. I try not to create too many pieces that I'm not actually being paid for. So I'm not trying to hope that somebody's going to like what I'm creating. I'm trying to find out what they want and create that for them on commission. So I know that's not always easy. And like I said, I know a lot of artists don't work that way, but that's part of my mentality, I think, from being in the business world for so many years and treating this like a business. I'm looking for what does my customer want and how can I get it to them rather than just creating and hoping somebody out there wants it. So I think about it, I guess, a little opposite of a lot of artists. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
It leads to another interesting comment that's been brought up by Doris. So she's tried various types of outreach in her community and has not had very much luck. She describes the community as a bit lackluster that way, in fact. And she said that her online provides more support and more sales for her art than what she's getting in the local community. So Could you just respond to that point? Because what I picked up from this is a lot of strategic thinking, maybe thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead. Things like doing a smaller project so that you build up to something like that. But what would you suggest for someone who is making attempts at outreach, but not quite getting a response? Because I could say personally, I've had this. I've had some communities just overwhelmingly be interested, and I've had others where nobody's interested in what I've got. So, and there seems to be no rhyme or reason from my perspective, at least.
I think that that really it's the community connection building, and I think you have to keep trying, and maybe you have to get more creative with your thinking, but maybe you also need to get some partners involved. Maybe you need to get some, maybe there's a local business that people are really fond of. Maybe there's a coffee shop locally that people really like and they have a good following. Maybe you find a way to work with that coffee shop, say, one night a month, you're in there, you're creating art in person. People can come up and talk to you. I think you really have to connect with people. And I know in this age of internet, I can grow up with the internet, so I'm kind of still not in the internet age in my mentality sometimes. I think you really have to connect in person with people, which is hard to do during a pandemic, I know. But also, just like I said, if you're finding something that people are connected to in your community, or something that they're really behind, like this deal with the Coke bottles in the local history museum. People were really behind supporting getting that history museum up and going in their new location. And so I don't want to say you're piggybacking on that, but you're kind of, you're finding that where the people have the connections, and that's where you want to try to go, and you're going to in turn make connections with people there that you will see start to have little wave effects, as this goes out. But you've got to first find, if they're hard to connect with, first find, what are they interested in your community? There's got to be something. There's got to be, you have to be really creative about your thinking and find where that connection is.
Great. Well, John, I think it says John Robeson had some very nice comments about you and your reputation. So check that out.
Thank you, John.
Molly has a great comment about networking. It can open doors which right now seem impossible. So, whether we're working at the local level or we're working internationally or nationally, I think some of the same approaches apply. But I have something that nobody has brought up, and I think it's pretty practical. Could you talk a little bit about getting people to pay you in a timely manner? I mean, if you're freelancing, this is something we all come up with. And I think, we together can brainstorm some ways of just making that happen. It's probably something I spend a lot of time, and you and everybody else, just getting people to pay you in a timely manner. What could you recommend?
Well, what I can recommend is, first of all, I do not have a problem with that. And the reason is, there's a good reason for that. I did have a problem with that in the beginning. But I very quickly decided that I would not do any work until I had money in my hand. And what I normally do, this is my general practice, is I have to have 60% upfront to enter it in my schedule. And at the end, the other 40%. If it's a large project over $500, I have a contract. I require 100% of materials up front, 60% of the artist stipend. If it's a really big project, I might have 2 more disbursements, maybe another 20% of the artist stipend in the middle, and maybe the rest at the end. But typically the rest of the 40% stipend at the end. But I don't do any project without at least that 60% up front, and I never do a project that involves materials without 100% of the money for the materials in my hand. I never am out of pocket for materials. I think that's a big no-no in this industry. So you shouldn't wait till the end to get your money. You should have some of that money up front, and then at least if they, you know, usually you're weeding out the people who are serious and the people who potentially would walk away without paying you. If they know they have to give you that money up front, they're making a commitment, you're making a commitment, you've put it in your schedule. Chances are, if they've given you that 60% up front, they're not going to walk away without paying you that 40% and getting their piece of art. So I don't let people not pay me up front, and I don't have a problem with it. And it's really, I know I was scared to do that at first. I thought, I'll never get anybody to do that. It has been such an amazing thing to do that. I definitely have weeded out here and there the ones that weren't serious and would have probably stiffed me in the end. and that's great. I don't want to do work for free. So that's the best way I found to do it.
Excellent, excellent. Well, there are no more chats up, so I don't know if you want to handle just taking questions directly from attendees. Paige just asked one after I said there were no more. Has your local effort enabled you to broaden out to state, regional, or nationally? Okay.
Yes, it has. I've done work all over a large portion of the state of Indiana. So I'm also reaching out nationally now. I'm applying for National Call for Artists. And some of that also gives you I think it gives you the confidence to do that. But it has. I've expanded. I've done work in Indianapolis. I've recently had one of my pieces of art projected at 9 stories tall on the Indianapolis Power and Light building on the Circle in downtown Indianapolis. So it's pretty cool. You know, once you start seeing that happen, and it takes time. It's not something that happens overnight. Like I said, I've had a freelance career for about 9 years now, and I've worked really hard at that through this whole time, building those connections and expanding and expanding and expanding. So now I'm working to I'm trying to get to a national scale. So I have seen that happen, and hopefully it will for you too.
We have
filing taxes.
What tips do you have for filing taxes?
Yeah, hang on just a second. I got to get a drink. Well, first of all, I have to say I'm super lucky because my husband is the guru of all things taxes and finances. And so he's a big factor and business partner for me. I would say collect taxes, first of all, always collect taxes and always file those taxes. You know, you need to be keeping up with that throughout the year. We're calculating, you know, what taxes I owe and keeping up with that. I know a lot of artists who they kind of, you know, hope that they don't have to pay some taxes on some things. I really try to always let my customers know, you know, applicable sales tax on everything, and definitely need to confer with a tax advisor if you're not sure when to charge tax and when you don't need to charge tax. If I do a digital illustration for somebody, I don't need to charge tax. If I'm giving them a file, if I'm giving them a finished piece of art, I do need to charge sales tax. So you really need to talk to someone who knows what they're doing with that and make sure that you're doing it the proper way and that you understand that. And I will say that one of your community partners should be the Indiana Small Business Development Center, because they can help you with that for free. They have a lot of people there who know what they're talking about, and it's great advice. I recently joined it, and I'm even taking advantage of the Hope Project now, which some of you may or may not have heard about. The Arts Commission did share that out. The Hope Project is helping businesses, small businesses that were affected by the pandemic, and it's the IU Kelly School of Business and the Indiana Small Business Development Center. I'm now getting a new website thanks to the Hope Project and the Small Business Development Center. So definitely check them out and ask these questions of them, because they have experts in all these areas.
Paige has posted some links in the chat. So definitely, I was going to tell anybody about the questions of taxes, just reach out to the mission. They have so many helpful people that in the right direction. And I also want to say thank you to Dina for providing the transcriptions of our discussion today. So I don't know what time we end, but if there are any other questions. 4:30. Okay, and I got a Central Time. So we got about 15 minutes. Yeah, if anyone has any other questions.
I think they wanted us maybe to end about 5 minutes early or something, but so we have a little bit of time left if anybody has any questions for me. And again, I touched on that just 1 second ago about the Indiana Small Business Development Center, but really knowing who your community partners are, even your local Convention and Visitors Bureau, the oh shoot, I've lost my train of thought now. I did good all through this, and it's not something I have on my flashcard. So all of those organizations in your town that are there to help you as a small business, because even if you don't see yourself as a small business, you are. You know, you're a business, and you need that support that every other business in town needs too. So. Any other questions or comments? I'm glad you all could join us. I really wish I could see everyone's faces, but it's been nice talking to you, and I hope that some of the information I gave you helped. And definitely don't hesitate to reach out to me if you think of something after the fact and you want to ask me. Here's my email address. You can grab a screen capture of that, or I think it's being recorded so you can see it on there. But don't hesitate to reach out to me, even if you have an idea that you want someone else, you know, you want to bounce it off of somebody else. I'd be happy to do that. So.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Beck. I think you did a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate your help.
Yeah, it was great to be in contact with you. So thank you, everybody. Be happy, be healthy. Best of luck out there, and hope to see you. We all get together for an in-person Indiana Arts Homecoming.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. I'd love to attend in person. Hopefully next year.
Okay.
Take care, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone.